Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass podcast. This for UFC Vegas 102. This episode and all episodes of the Dogger Pass podcast are brought to you by Prize Picks. Use promo code Dogger Pass when making a new account to get a match up to $200 on your first deposit. 3x rollover. So deposit $200, make $600 worth of bets. The money is free for you to take out as you please. It's one of the easiest rollovers ever. Cool bet, great people. Obviously, they sent me down to Costa Rica and all that good stuff, but like really easy in customer service dealing with them. Like we definitely, picked and choose when we were going through. I've kind of bet everywhere over the years, and they're one of the easiest ones to deal with. We didn't want to ever send people to a book that's like, dodgy. There's a lot of dodgy ones out there, Cody. I don't know if you know about that whole scene, but no, Cool Bet's the best. We wouldn't be telling you guys to play there otherwise. But we come off of a pay-per-view, and it wasn't the greatest pay-per-view, Cody, from like a card perspective. But there were some fights that delivered, and then you kind of look at this card, and you're like, we're back at the damn old Apex.
Paul Shaughnessy, my man, I highly disagree. See, last week it was like, why aren't they sticking to the game plan? But you've got this hot, raucous crowd. All you hear in your ear is blood, and all you hear is, they want vendetta, and they want someone to go and get knocked down. They want all these crazy things. At the Apex, nice, quiet. Your coach says, "Hey, Kevin, you should probably shoot a takedown." Maybe he shoots the takedown. Let me just get back in a small little vibe, small little card. Let's get back on track. So I actually don't mind this. From a betting standpoint, I think there's a couple edges to be had. There's a couple juicy underdogs, but of course, it's up to them to go and perform on Saturday night. So that's what we're here to do, is break it down.
Yeah, I mean, my problem with the Apex really comes down to, like, if you're watching for spectacle, there's nothing worse than the warehouse in Las Vegas. If you're betting on fights, then whatever. It could be in your backyard for all I care. But yeah, main event, we've got Gregory Rodrigues taking on Jared Cannonier. Rodrigues a -213 favorite. Cannonier could be had for +178. Who do you like here?
Okay, so if you're going to bet Gregory Rodrigues, I think almost certainly do not take this pre-market number beforehand. Let this thing play out a couple rounds. Jared Cannonier is competitive with everybody, and the one thing about Jared Cannonier is he's not exactly the biggest name in the division, and yet this is his 6th straight UFC main event. It's like his 8th or 9th overall main event for the UFC. They've really not done him any favors. He beats Sean Strickland, who went on to win a title. He beats Marvin Vettori in a fight where he landed 241 significant strikes, and then he tears his MCL. Took a full year off after that, comes back. He's now 40, year-long layoff, coming off a massive MCL surgery, a massive knee surgery. And right away, it's like you're back in the main event. And who do they give him? They give him Nasruddin Imavov. And you watch that fight, Paul. Jared Cannonier's striking is elite. Like, it's maybe not the best of the division, of course, but he goes out there and fights guys like Israel Adesanya or Robert Whittaker and gives every elite striker of the division a pretty solid account of himself. He's got tight defenses. He moves well. The problem is because he's 40 and because there's that layoff, the longer that fight goes, he does start to slow down and fatigue. After 2 rounds, it's 1-1. Everyone's got this thing tied up after 2 rounds going forward. The first 2 rounds are close. Nasruddin Imavov is currently a top 3 or top 5 guy in the middleweight division. His next fight, they say, okay, you know what? 2 months later, gets knocked out by Imavov in the 4th round. 2 months later, Paul, 60 days later, how would you like to headline another UFC fight night versus Caio Barral, another one of these guys that's a top 3 or top 5 guy of the division, elite guy of the division? Cannonier wins the 2nd round off Barral. It's a close fight. Just the longer the thing goes, he starts to unravel. Almost gets KO'd at the end of the 5th, but ends up surviving. Point being is that if they booked him in a 3-round fight, I think he'd have way more success. Is these 5-round fights at 40, them not giving him any tune-ups, them not giving him any bounce backs, the longer these fights go, they're a little bit problematic. Now, good thing for him, he's getting Gregory Rodrigues. So when you look at this resume, Caio Barral, Nasruddin Imavov, Marvin Vettori, Sean Strickland, Israel Adesanya, Derek Brunson, Kelvin Gastelum, Robert Whittaker, Jack Hermanson, Anderson Silva, Dominic Reyes, Jan Blachowicz, Glover Teixeira, all of those guys are infinitely better than Gregory Rodrigues. So in fact, this is actually a step down for him. And I think 3rd fight back from the knee surgery, not fighting 60 days after a KO, all these things, I do feel like he's got the back class to pull this thing off later. Main thing is that I know it'll be competitive early. I'm betting Cannonier because I hope he can get his cardio in check and carry that later. And the step down in competition hopefully pays off. Meanwhile, if you're a Gregory Rodrigues fan, I think you're looking to extend this fight. We just talked about the resume of Jared Cannonier. He's been in there with some of the best guys in the game. He stood his ground against some of the best guys in his division. Flip side to that with Gregory Rodrigues is this win streak is pretty salty. He beat Dennis Tiulin, Brad Tavares, Christian Leroy Duncan. The Brad Tavares fight, he gets zipped a couple times standing in the first round. Like, he gets seriously wobbled. Okay, fair enough, but it's a striking battle. He ends up winning. The Christian Leroy Duncan fight, Christian Leroy Duncan can't wrestle at all and has poor cardio, so he's able to exploit that a little bit. But we've seen time and time again throughout the history, really, for Gregory Rodrigues, is that when he stands up with these big strikers with big power, he gets KO'd. On the regional scene, his first career loss, Bruno Lopez, he got knocked out in 1 minute and 5 seconds. His third career loss to Jordan Williams on the Contender Series, he got knocked out 2 minutes and 19 seconds into the first round. His fight with Arman, he doesn't get knocked out, got 124 significant strikes landed against him. But it's that Bruno Ferreira fight. Again, against Bruno, he's a minus 310 favorite, and all Bruno does is just swing hooks in the pocket in the first round, clips him, and he goes down. He's fighting Jared Cannonier now. That doesn't show any KO wins since 2022, but Jared Cannonier fights all the best guys in the game. It's hard to knock them out sometimes. He's fighting a guy in Jared Cannonier that's got just as much firepower, if not more firepower, than all these guys that have previously knocked him out. You've seen him get buzzed by guys like Brad Tavares, who are regarded as a light puncher, volume puncher, but a light puncher. Armen Petrosian, not a power puncher, volume puncher, able to hit him a pile of times. I feel like Jared Cannonier has a path of victory in that he could just knock him out within the first 2 rounds. If he doesn't, it's mostly just hold your ground. Gregory Rodrigues would have to shoot takedowns, but in doing so, that's doing something that he's not really doing in much of his fights. He prefers to strike. Yeah, he can take down Dennis Tulin. Yeah, he can maybe take down Christian Leroy Duncan. But even in that Duncan fight, it goes 3 rounds. In the third round, he's starting to fatigue. This is a 5 round fight. You've never seen RoboCop in a 5 round fight. You've never seen him with somebody that can crack like Jared Cannonier. Meanwhile, he's headlined 9 times for the UFC, so he's got the backlash. He's got the ability to fight 5. He's got the ability to KO this guy. He's a better striker. His takedown defense hasn't traditionally been good, but a lot of those numbers are from when he was fighting at 205, so they're a little bit, they look worse than they are. And again, he's fighting the best guys in the game. RoboCop's not an elite striker. He's a good jiu-jitsu guy. Doesn't show a ton of submission victories. When was the last time RoboCop subbed a guy? Back in 2018, he armbarred somebody on the Brazilian regional scene. Okay, fair enough.
Hasn't
If
happened.
he's not, yeah, it's a long time ago. So this is a total dog or pass fight for me. I wouldn't put Cannonier at the top. I wouldn't put him on my second line, anything like that. But truthfully, I just feel like Cannonier is a better striker. This fight will likely play out striking. Path of victory to knock him out. Path of victory to just out volume. Cannonier at his best, you've seen him land 240 significant strikes. So he can't have the volume. He can't have the power. He has fought five. He has fought 5 rounds before, many of times, and level of competition. So just it's enough for me to say dog or pass. And in this situation, Cannonier's the dog. So let's take him.
Yeah, I already bet Cannonier plus 165. Was surprised. Like, I see it as high as like plus 185 at some places. So it was working its way down. It got to plus 150, and then there was action that kind of brought it back up to like, the numbers that we have here on the show, courtesy of Coolbet. Yeah, I get it. Cannonier is 40 years old. He hasn't looked as good. The last great performance, I suppose, that he had was against Marvin Vittori. That was almost a year and a half ago at this point. It was June 17th, 2023. But over the course of 5 rounds, he got some takedowns there. I wouldn't expect that in this situation, but 241 significant strikes. And Vittori's a guy who's usually able to take guys down and impose his will on people that way. Before that, he was very competitive with Sean Strickland, who, and after that went on to win the belt, outclassed Israel Adesanya on the feet. Maybe that doesn't mean all that much these days. And then the 2 losses that he's coming off of are the 2 fastest risers right now at 185 pounds. So G-Rod, correct me if I'm wrong, he's never been 5 rounds. I mean, I guess against Christian Leroy Duncan, it didn't look all that gassed. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he's got another 2 rounds in his briefcase there. But it's going to have to be a lot of takedowns. If he just wants to stand and trade with Jared Cannonier at 185 pounds, he may be in for a rude awakening. So at plus 165 for me, I threw a unit on it. We'll see where the number goes over the course of the week, but I think it's pretty clearly a dog or pass. Gregory Rodrigues is kind of in that type of situation where he's got, like, prove it that, like, you're of that caliber. I got it. Full disclosure, I got caught fading Baralho in the exact same way. Baralho outstruck him, basically doubled him up on strikes over the course of 5 rounds. So, egg on my face, I suppose, in that situation. But it proved to me that Baralho is like, of that caliber, of that upper tier in the middleweight division caliber. Haven't seen it from Gregory Rodrigues yet. And then there's obviously, previous fights over the course of his career where that chin's been checked, that chin's been compromised. And it's not out of the realm of possibility for Cannonier to knock his head off here. So Rodrigues super super tough, durable. Won't be shocked if he wins. But I think Cannonier's got another in the tank, and the books are giving me a number that I think is more than fair to hop on board. So it sounds like we're kind of in agreement on that fight. We move on to the co-main event. We got Youssef Zalal taking on Calvin Kattar. Zalal, minus 400 favorite. Kattar can be had for plus 320. Your thoughts?
I'm gonna take Calvin Kattar. I know it's an underdog pick, but I feel like normally when you just see things quickly on paper, it's like, oh, Zalal's gonna just walk right through this guy. Minus 400 favorite, which he is. Large grappling advantage, which he does possess, and then that's it. And then Zalal ends up on my top ticket this week, and then I sit there Saturday night and I watch the fights and I'm having a time, and he fails to get the fight to the ground and gets boxed up standing and loses, and then I look like an idiot. So honestly, that's kind of how I see the fight going. There's multiple things with the use of Zalal I love, but there's a lot of things I don't necessarily love. We'll start off with him, right? This is his second go around in the UFC. Everybody knows the story. First comes to the UFC, goes like 3-3. They opt to cut him, coming off a draw of Damon Blackshear. He fights a bunch of times in the regional scene, took a boxing match, kickboxing match, MMA fight all in one day, all that jazz. Cool. But fought nobody of substance on the regional scene. Then he comes back to the UFC. Okay. Gets Billy Quarantillo, who he smokes. Good performance. Takes Yarno Arons. That's a very favorable matchup. I mean, he's taking on a Dutch kickboxer and training and living in the Netherlands with very little grappling, but runs right through him. And then he gets Jack Shore. Jack Shore retires right after the fight and says, you know what, fighting's not exactly for me. And now all of a sudden, he's a giant favorite over Calvin Kattar. So let's see how this could possibly go wrong. Well, what does Youssef Zalal do better than anything? He's got really good grappling. Like once he's physically on top of you, I mean, it's game over. He's got an excellent back take, got excellent rear naked choke, very opportunistic with his submission game, trains at altitude, trains with Brendan Royval. You see Brendan Royval very big into the scrambles and just the snatching up something. You get the same thing out of Youssef Zalal, the Moroccan devil. His striking, although fancy, it's very fast-footed on the outside, moves laterally well, uses that jab well, is that he's super low output. So when you look just strictly at his striking, he attempts 1.71 strikes per minute. It's very low, very low. Lands 2.84. Well, in comparison to Calvin Kattar's attempting 6.7 strikes per minute, sorry, and landing 4.7. Now that just sounds like numbers, but the bottom line is that Calvin Kattar is attempting half of the amount of strikes, right? And he's landing basically twice the amount of strikes. When you look at Youssef Zalal, this is his entire career in the UFC, okay? Austin Lingo went the distance. He landed 31, very low. Jordan Griffin, it went the distance, full 15 minutes. He landed 59. Pete Barrett went the distance. He landed 54. Him versus Ilya Topuria, I give him the pass there, but it went the distance. He landed 17. Sungwoo Choi, who he lost to, went the distance. 6 straight fight. He lands 23, very low. Woodson, he lands 42 and loses. Damon Blackshear, he lands a career high 63 significant strikes in a 15-minute fight. He lost the first 2 rounds and got to 10-8 in the third. Otherwise would have lost that fight. But bottom line is that his career high in the UFC over 7 or 8 fights is 63 significant strikes landed per minute. This second go around in the UFC, it's been the same thing. He subs Billy Q, he lands 33. You give him a pass because it's a submission. Yarno Arons, he lands 10. You give him a pass because it's a submission. It's the Jack Shore fight. The Jack Shore fight, he lands 7 significant strikes in the first round. That's it. He can't get Jack Shore down in the first round. He doesn't look good in the first round. The second round, he's finally able to top Shore over and get him. Now, keep in mind 2 things about Jack Shore. One, he retired right after the fight. He was like, this isn't for me anymore. And Jack Shore, his best days were at 135 pounds. He moved up to 145 pounds and looked largely outsized. He's like 5'7" or something. Now he's getting someone in Calvin Kattar that's 5'11", a real featherweight. In no world makes 135 pounds. Okay, so what you're getting is that like you got a hyped up prospect who got a quick 3 wins, looks good, but what's the substance there? So you go back and you watch the Billy Q fight. What are the 2 takedowns that he gets on Billy Q? They're both the exact same thing. Muay Thai foot sweep. Not a single leg, not a double leg, not a body lock. Doesn't duck under and reach over to his back. Doesn't arm drag him. It's nothing of that. It's a quick little Muay Thai hop, step, trip him over, and that's the exact same takedown. He gets it with him both times. The Yarno Aaron's fight, he gets him up against the cage, but Aaron's can't wrestle. Jack Shore took Youssef Zalal down twice. Youssef Zalal had one takedown on Shore, who again is a bantamweight, moved up and retired right afterwards. So it looks good. It looks good. But he's always struggled with his physicality. He's not a good wrestler. He's a good jiu-jitsu guy, but he's not a good wrestler. You go back to some of these fights before. Sean Woodson, great example. The Sean Woodson fight, he goes 2 for 17 on takedowns over Sean Woodson, who's tall, but not exactly known for his wrestling. He's always struggled with that. So now, okay, we're not just fading Youssef Zalal. We like him, but what we do outline here is that he's problematic with his offensive wrestling. He's not the strongest guy. He struggles to get opponents to the ground. The second thing is that when the fights are standing and he's forced to use his striking, he's not landing no more than 63 significant strikes. You've seen him go the distance a pile of times. That seems to be his number. Even in some of these fights, like the Jack Shore fight or the Yarno Aaron's fight, he's getting outlanded standing, so he shoots a takedown. Well, if that's not on the table, it's going to be a problem. Now we've got flip side, we've got Calvin Kattar, and he's 37, and he's on a 3-fight losing streak, and it looks like it's the end of the road for him, right? That last fight, UFC 300, Paul, oh my God. He got dominated by Aljamain Sterling, who was moving up a weight class, 8 takedowns given up. Not a good sign for Calvin Kattar. But let's make the guy a few excuses, right? We'll start with the first fight of the 3-fight losing streak, right? He loses to Josh Emmett in a fight that he lands Emmett 130 to 107. He stuffs all 4 of Josh Emmett's takedowns, and Josh Emmett was a former college wrestler training at Team Alpha Male, so stuffed all those 4, outstrikes him. 20 media members scored the fight on MMA decisions. 75% of them scored the fight for Calvin Kattar. Split decision. Unfortunately, they give it to Josh Emmett. The second fight is Arnold Allen. Wins the first round, gets a hot start. Calvin's working his way back into it, blows his knee out. Doesn't get choked out, doesn't get knocked out, doesn't lose the fight clean. He injures his knee. Unfortunate. That all of a sudden, now you're on a 2-fight losing streak. Should have won the Emmett fight. Blow your knee out in a fight against Allen that you definitely could have won. And now you're on a 2-fight losing streak. Take a year off and they give you Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain Sterling, sure, he's moving up a weight class. He's a former UFC champion. He trains with Rob Dvalishvili every single day. He, in his very next fight after Calvin Kattar, took down Movsar Evloev 6 times. He took down TJ Dillashaw 5 times. He took down Olympic U.S. gold medalist Henry Cejudo 4 times. Aljamain Sterling is one of the best wrestlers and grapplers. Sure, he's moving up a weight class, but he's elite of the elite. You can't tell me that Youssef Zalal has the same wrestling game that Aljamain Sterling has. He doesn't. And he had to get 8 takedowns on 12 attempts. If Youssef, he can't just stick to that same game, even if he does get him down. Aljo had him down. He got back up. Aljo can keep taking him down. Youssef, I'm seeing it problematic that he's going to get 4, 5, 6 takedowns. So he's going to be forced to strike where he's going to be made uncomfortable. So the last thing I'll sprinkle there on for you is that Calvin Kattar, 37, things are not looking good. His buddy, training partner, New England Cartel, homeboy, longtime friend, Rob Font, is in the same funk. He's 36. He's lost 2 fights in a row. He's getting out grappled. He needs to do something else. So he just uproots and leaves, moves, goes to TriStar. Now, TriStar's not kicking anymore. Doesn't have 100 bodies anymore. So it's all focused training on Rob Font, who goes and he takes on Kyler Phillips. Kyler Phillips is a minus 350 favorite over Rob Font. Rob Font kicks his ass. He's got Faraz in his corner. He says, the specified training grade. Kattar went with him. Kattar spent all that time. He's been at TriStar. He's got Ryan Hall working his jiu-jitsu for this exact specific occasion. He's going to come in and he's going to give a good account of himself. We've got a striking advantage. On paper, it looks like we're just going to get taken down easily. No, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. He's going to stuff him. He's going to keep it standing. He's going to beat him up. Tough New England boy puts it on him. So I got Calvin Kattar to pull the upset here.
Question for you, Cody.
Yes.
Are you stealing my homework from the Bookie Beatdown Discord?
Did you write all this in the Discord?
I didn't write all this, no. But Kattar was like the other play that I had made early in the week. Plus 335. A lot of the same things. It's not that I don't like Youssef Zalal. I think there's definitely a world where he gets takedowns here and controls. And I mean, he could definitely even win on the feet. Like, he lands very, very hard. Don't get me wrong. But like, the numbers just very, very jarring. Like, it's a guaranteed winner almost at minus 400. And I don't think it's going to necessarily be all that easy. Maybe I just like betting on old dudes. I've got money on Cannonier. I've got money on Kattar. But yeah, if this fight just takes place on the feet, all of a sudden, Kattar just throws up obscene amounts of volume. His chin has always been, rock solid. Um, yeah, it's kind of takedown or bust, grapple fest or bust. And even when Kattar gets taken down, has his back taken, everything like that. It's like he's defensively sound enough to like not get subbed super quick, and then round two we're back up on the feet. So at plus three, anything above plus 300, I got plus 335 for half of a unit. But anything above that, I feel like it's another situation where it's like Zalal's got to prove to me that like he's in, a top 10 type of conversation in the featherweight division. It's been impressive. His comeback since getting cut from the UFC, going and doing that 1 day tournament for like Sparta or whatever. His run since he got back, we've been backing him a whole bunch, but now it's like the books are like, okay, we're sick of getting beaten up on Zalal. This is where I flop back to the other side. That it's just like I like the improvements. I think he's got, he's only 28 years old. I think there's still plenty of room for growth with Youssef Zalal, and it's a finished product with Kattar. Maybe a deteriorating finished product with Kattar, but yeah, at this current number, it's a dogger pass for me as well. We got Edmen Shahbazyan taking on Dylan Budka. Shahbazyan a minus 357 favorite. Budka can be had for plus 280. I've taken two dogs. I begrudgingly, I don't want to take Edmen Shahbazyan here, but I kind of think Budka's like the worst guy in the I guess his only saving grace is that like he's somewhat durable. Grappling is mediocre, good enough maybe to get some takedowns here. The problem with Shahbazyan is like, yeah, he's an absolute. He's super super dangerous for the first round, but it's like if you're able to mix in takedowns, make it a bit ugly. This guy's gas tank just falls off of a cliff every single time. All of his fights finish in the first couple of rounds. He usually has some success in round one. So yeah, like if I were to bet Edmen, it would probably be like an Edmen KO one prop, which is probably super juiced as well. Him by KO is plus 125. That's how I would go about it if I were to go down that road, and I may go down that road. Laying minus 357 on him, not the way I would really play it. But Budka, like this is a significant step down in competition. Budka may be the worst guy on the roster. They're trying to get Edmen back on track. I think he does get back on track, but buyer beware. This is a guy who everything can look like it's going absolutely perfectly, and it just falls off the damn rails. So Edmen is the pick. I would take like his knockout prop or like his round one knockout prop if I were, if I was forced to bet on this. Probably will add it to my card small over the course of the week, but I just can't get behind Budka. What would
Yeah, it's a weird fight because Shahbazyan is just absolute fade material. You want to fade this guy, and yet when they give him this level of opponent, all of a sudden you're finding yourself getting behind him. But we know that the book has already been written on Edmen Shahbazyan. This is all of his fights. Going back to his fight with Darren Stewart, he wins the fight on a split decision, got outstruck by Darren Stewart, gassed out, and just the second half of the fight, he's a completely different guy against limited opposition. It's a first round dynamo. He can give anybody a first round. He knocked out Brad Tavares in the first round. Many of good guys have fought Brad Tavares and not iced him cold in the first. That's him at his best. Just like Paul's saying, he's a 1 round guy. If you want to bet a 1 round guy, he is one of the all-time greatest. It's everything beyond that is where he falls apart. His Derek Brunson fight, he exposes the second issue with him. He's got really bad cardio. He's got bad takedown defense. Brunson takes him down 4 times, gasses him. Jack Hermanson waits till he gasses, takes him down 3 times. Nasruddin Imavov, wait until he gasses, eventually TKO'd him in the second round with some elbows. His fight with Anthony Hernandez. Shit, I want to give him a pass on that one. But Anthony is the prototypical really good cardio, really good wrestling. And one of the two things that Edmen Shahbazyan does very poorly? His cardio and his counter grappling abilities. So it's just a terrible matchup for him. And then, of course, he goes out there and looks bad. That's the kind of stuff that he's going to struggle against. That last fight with Jeremy Mearshart, the first round's damn near 10-8, but he's beating the crap out of him. The second round starts off, He knocks down Mearshart. In fact, Mark Smith yells to Mearshart, defend yourself, defend yourself. He's 2 strikes away from jumping in. The second Mearshart gets back up and is able to land a quick little takedown of his own, it immediately passes to arm triangle choke. Shahbazyan taps before the thing's fully locked in. I want to give the guy a pass, but again, you know the two ways of beating him. So if someone was just to, without talking about this specific matchup, if someone was just to say, what are the best qualities of Dylan Budka? And there's not many, but what are the best qualities of Dylan Budka? Well, he can wrestle. He wrestled in college for Notre Dame in Ohio. And also, like Paul mentioned, he's somewhat durable. He's only been knocked out once in his career. It was against Cesar Almeida, but Cesar Almeida hits pretty damn hard. So it's not like he's shown problematic durability issues in the past. He has that wrestling. His cardio's not bad. He fought a 5-rounder in LFA against Bakoev, who's now fighting in the UFC and not looking terrible. That was a 5-round fight that he lost a split decision in. If his cardio holds up, and his wrestling holds up, those are the two exact things that he needs to utilize to beat Edmen Shahbazyan. Push him up against the cage. He's going to be throwing explosive, heavy head kicks, big hooks, nasty jabs, heavy low kicks, going to the body. Push him up against the cage. Just grind him. The second round, he's not as fast. He's not as durable. The takedowns start to come easier. The third round, Budka would have to take over. But man, Paul, he's just too limited at this point. And I don't disagree with you one bit when you say he's probably the worst guy in the roster. And it's not actually really his fault. It's that he needs more time to mature. This is a guy that's 25 years old. Look at this stat. This is unbelievable. He makes his amateur debut in 2021. He makes his amateur debut 2021. He fought 9 times in 2021 as an amateur and then turned pro in 2022. Now, on paper, it looks good. Oh, he had 9, 10 amateur fights. The realistic nature of it is he didn't even fight amateur for 1 year, went pro, and then within 2 years as a pro is all of a sudden in the UFC. His wins are over guys that are 2-10, younger upcoming guys. 2-4, 2-10. He fought this Dan Stevenson guy in 2023. He weighed 207 pounds. Dan Stevenson weighed 250 pounds. Like he's just taking random heavyweight fights just to stay active. Because his wrestling can work on those guys. Just goes in, takes them down. You're not forced to readdress your skills. You're not forced to learn striking. You're not forced to learn your grappling. You're just fighting all the time and using that wrestling. At some point, someone's going to stuff him, and then he's not going to be any good. And that's what's happened since he's come to the UFC. Cesar Almeida is not a great grappler. He stuffs the majority of the takedowns, maybe loses the first round, but second round opens up at the elbows, TKOs him off the fence. Bad look for Budka. Second fight against Andre Petroski, he misses weight, comes in at 188.5, and then proceeds to do the same thing. He got taken down 3 times by Petroski, never attempted any takedowns of his own, landed like 14 significant strikes, super hesitant, not good. 25 years old, still young. But where's he at? He's his own head coach, not his own head coach. He's the head coach at Demolition Fight Team in Ohio, and that's the gym where he trains out of. He's got 3 or 4 training partners, none of which are notable pros, bunch of amateurs at the gym. So he needs to get released from the UFC, go back to the regional scene, fight 10 more times there, and then come back when he's 28, come back when he's 29. Pull a Zoo wrong, pull a Youssef Zalal, get cut, work on your skills, come back and be better down the road, but it ain't working out for him. And then because he's 0-2 in the UFC already, loses 2 fights against Cesar Almeida, Andre Petroski, missed weight in the latter one, looked awful in both fights. The UFC should have just cut him. They should have just said, hey, sorry, man, it's not working out, and cut him. Instead, they give him one more fight. And so when they call you and say, you know what, kid, we're not going to cut you. We're going to give you one more fight. You have zero ability to say no to whatever the fight is presented. And the fight that's presented is Edmen Shahbazyan. That is not the right fight for you right now, but it's the only fight that you're going to be offered, so you take it. Now, Edmen's too big of a favorite considering he's got a little bit of quit in him and you know how to beat him, but he's the rightful favorite, and I do think he wins.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I totally agree. That's where my head is at here. I found a little like I was while you were talking there, I was sprinkling. One of the books is just like you have to like do multiple bets. It's kind of a pain, but they had Shahbazyan round 1 KO plus 350. So I was scooping up a little bit of that while I could. Because I think that's like most of his win condition is probably there, or maybe at the beginning of round 2 if like he gets taken down immediately, and Budka isn't able to do anything to him on the ground, but like spends most of the time on top, and then Shahbazyan's got that short window of time before he gets taken down at the beginning of round 2. Like that's I think possible as well, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Yeah, but Shahbazyan KO is how I would approach this. It's getting juiced across the market right now, and rightfully so, because I think most of his win condition is right squarely on that prop. We've got Ismael Bonfim taking on Nazim. Sadykhov minus 200 for Bonfim. Sadykhov can be had for plus 170. Who you got here?
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards Ismael Bonfim. Like I like Sadykhov, all action guy, but he seems super limited. Like he's a Longo guy out of New York. One has to assume that he is working on all of his skills, but when he gets in there, he just moves to get in the pocket and just swing hooks. He's got legitimate power, but he's sitting down on everything. A little bit flat-footed, open to leg kicks. Offensively, he can't shoot a takedown, but I wouldn't classify him as like a high-level wrestler, not a high-level grappler. Just one tough dude, man. One tough dude with a hell of a chin on him and a hell of a right and left hook. So that will, definitely make you an all-action guy and give you some success. But he's super open to guys that are going to have a good jab and that are longer than him. Like everything he does needs to be within the pocket. He'll just lunge in. Yeah, again, he doesn't have much of a jab himself. He doesn't have much of a straight right hand. It has to be with these hook shots. And because he's only got a 69-inch reach, he does again. He has to cover that distance. You saw him on the Contender Series against Amat Hazanada. Good fight. I mean, he's landing the bigger shots. Hazanada's landing takedowns. In the third round, he eventually catches him, knocks him out, gets a contract dope. The Evan Elder fight, it's a banger of a fight, but all three judges had Evan Elder winning both rounds prior to 38 seconds into the third. He opens up a cut. They check the cut. They wave it off. He's down on all three judges' scorecards 0-2, but they called it off due to a cut. So it's not the greatest of performance. Terrence McKinney's one's weird. Terrence McKinney decides not to do what he normally does, which is bomb on people. Instead, takes his back, takes him down, takes his back, controls him, and then eventually just gasses out and loses. It's a nice body of work. You can't discredit him for anything like that, but he just shows you the same version of himself every time out. The Borishev fight, I give him props. He at least mixed in takedowns to his game. But Borishev's the easiest guy in the division to take down, and Sadykhov went 4 for 7, had 3.5 minutes of top control. Borishev constantly got back up. Borishev constantly beat him with a punch. Borishev constantly outworked him. And I mean, it ends up being a draw because they gave a 10-8 round to Sadykhov, but otherwise he lost 2 of the 3 rounds. So you got a guy here that got outworked by Evan Elder and lost rounds. He got outworked by Varshov Borishev and lost rounds. He's got big killer power. We all know that. But he's super prone to getting outworked, especially with guys that have a jab on them. When you look at Bonfim, he's got a good jab on him. He's not ever been knocked out. So we hope that his chin's going to hold up. But beyond that, I mean, he's going to have only a 2-inch reach advantage, but he just pops the jab out. He fights long. On the Contender Series, sure, picks up a win. Terrence McKinney, a fight of his own. He knocks him out with a flying knee. Benoit Saint Denis, I mean, tough go. He gets ragdolled to the ground a couple times. He gets submitted. But the Vince Pichel fight was the outlier to me that he can fight a full 15 minutes. He can land a bunch of significant strikes. He's got a good jab. He's capable of working from the outside. He's capable of just, landing those shots and outworking his opponent, waiting for them to tire a bit. Sadykhov is all power. Bonfim's going to be more volume. He's got power of his own, but I just feel like he's going to outwork him down the stretch. So the number's not terrible enough that I would pass or dogger pass type situation. I will take the favorite and go with Bonfim brother #1.
Yeah, I used to call him Bad Bonfim. I don't know if I'm
I
gonna
think he's
call.
the better of the two.
I think he may be the better of the two. And I don't know if that's really saying all that much, but I mean, you just kind of look at their last couple of performances, and that's what I think is like the real proof in the pudding here. I mean, majority decision or majority draw against Borshev. Got 4 takedowns, but got pounded up. And then we watch Borshev go out there against Tom Nolan this past week, and you're like, this guy's like over the hill at this point. Yeah, obviously, Sadykhov had the finish, which I was on, of McKinney, but it's like that's because you get out of the first round against Terrence McKinney, and he's not the same guy. Bonfim, on the other hand, the Benoit Saint Denis fight, we're not going to give you very much of a problem there. Terrence McKinney fight, like he was tit for tat the entire time when McKinney was at his best, and then finished him with a sick flying knee in round 2. And against my boy Vince from Hell Pichel. That's a tough, gritty veteran He's proven enough to me at this point that I think he's rightful chalk. The number was actually better like a day or two ago. Money has been moving in on Ismael Bonfim, and I think it's warranted. Um, Sadykhov, I don't. I just think that Bonfim's just better than him in every realm of the game. And yeah, Sadykhov is going to try to lean on wrestling. It's not really his game. He did it against Borshev because everyone does it against Borshev. Bonfim probably has some problems from in terms of like BJJ on the ground, like on the feet. I think Ishmael should absolutely light him up. Could be competitive in spots, but no, I think Bonfim rifle chalk in this situation. We got Rodolfo Vieira taking on Andre Petroski. Vieira minus 250 favorite. Andre can be had for plus 207. Oh boy.
Mm.
I'm not. You know me. We've been watching this for a long, or we've been talking about fights forever with each other. Feels like. Um, I'm not a Petroski guy. Not a Petroski fan. Against Mamba Malkoon, pretty. He was able to stuff all the takedowns. I was like, all right, this is actually going okay. I think I was on the like heavy on like the overs or fight goes to decision or something like that. And then he jams his damn head right into Malkoon's hip. Absolutely KO bust. Petroski's best work is usually when like he's able to get takedowns, hold top control. The volume on the feet isn't all that there. He'll throw, with cruel intentions. I don't think he's got the biggest amount of power by any stretch of the imagination, but the volume's pretty typically very low. Cardio, big time question mark. I know that he has got third round finishes and stuff, but like his body tells a different tale. Looks like he's super tired in a lot of these fights. Rodolfo, on the other hand, I mean, if this guy gets the fight to the mat, I don't care what your BJJ game is. He's so electric that he can close the show at any given time. But now you got a minus 250 price tag next to his name. I kind of go back and I look at the Chris Curtis fight. I go, all right, well, what if wrestling gets negated here? It's like Vieira, not the greatest wrestler. He'll try, but maybe Petroski's got enough takedown defense to keep this upright. Andre would be pretty dumb to just take this to the mat, pull a Brundage, go to the mat, and find out what happens when you go down there with Rodolfo Vieira. If this ends up in a situation where it's like, wrestling gets negated, they stay on the feet. What I saw in the Chris Curtis fight with Rodolfo Vieira is that, he spammed 20 takedowns, got shut down on every single one of them, wasn't able to get a takedown whatsoever. And
0 for
then
20.
0 for 20. And then, after that, Curtis started getting taken down by some people. But like, that's besides the point. I just don't think that his offensive wrestling is all that good unless yours is awful. I think Petroski should be able to keep this upright. But what I did see in that fight is that he was able to go a full 3 rounds. He was able to get 86 significant strikes. So I think, unless, I mean, it's very, very in the realm of possibilities that like one of these guys has that Petroski has an ego check, decides to take this to the ground, and who knows what, I mean,
He
Rodolfo,
does. He does.
it could very well happen. But what I actually like, Rodolfo will be the pick. I kind of think like volume based decision. Wrestling gets negated. We have an ugly kickboxing match between the two of these guys. But what I like as a bet more than anything is, this sounds like me speaking through you. It's like I'm reading your homework, but
I think you are, dude.
over 1.5 minus 200. I think I like that quite a bit. Rodolfo doesn't have much power in his hands. You'd be crazy to go to the mat with him, particularly early. And then if you want to get a little bit more dangerous, fight goes to decision plus 145. Rodolfo by decision if you want to go extra, extra dangerous. But Rodolfo will be the pick, but not by the way that you would probably think. Maybe you would think, but not everybody.
Yeah, no, I'm actually thinking most of the exact same stuff, dude. Honestly, Rodolfo Vieira, think about this, right? The Chris Curtis fight, which you go back to, he goes 0 for 20. He has fought twice since then, right? Chris Curtis has fought 7 times since then. Yeah, Rodolfo's 35 years old. Like he's a BJJ guy that did a career of BJJ, is really good at BJJ. Coming over to MMA, I just don't think that those skills were ever really going to catch up to an elite level because he's a little bit older and he's got a career of injuries from grappling. His body's not holding up. He fights very infrequently. He's got a second round win over Cody Brunridge and a first round submission win over Armin Petrosian. Fair. So he hasn't been out of that second round and since 2022, nearly 3 years ago. Cardio has always been a bit of an issue. You saw him gas heavily against Dustin Stolfus. He gassed heavily against Anthony Hernandez. I wouldn't say he gassed against Chris Curtis as much as he just had zero success with getting the fight to the ground. And then the Cody Brunridge fight, watch that one back, right? Brunridge drops him with the overhand right. He beats him up in the first round. It's like he looks way out of sorts. In the second round, Brunridge comes out gassed and then pulls guard on a guillotine choke. That allows Rodolfo to end up on top, where he ends up getting a submission victory of his own, a head and arm choke. His fight with Armin Petrosian, he got him with a head and arm choke. He took this grappling match with Derek Brunson, head and arm choke. His fight with Saparbek Safarov back at UFC 248 had an arm choke. His fight with Oscar Pichota at UFC on ESPN 14, that's his UFC debut, had an arm choke. That's his move. If he gets on top of you and he can shift off to the side, he's going to grab a head and arm choke. If you can defend getting taken down, you can defend that one move he's got when you get on the ground. I think someone's going to sprawl and brawl this guy and beat him up. And so here's a super interesting stat, Paul. I mean, I know not everyone's into stats and numbers, but with Rodolfo Vieira, it bears mentioning. His UFC debut against Oscar Pichota, at the time of submission, he was getting outstruck 22 to 18. His fight with Sabrbek Safarov, at the time of submission, it was 5-5. Against Anthony Hernandez, he was outstruck 32 to 9. Against Stolfus, he was outstruck 67 to 49. Against Chris Curtis, outstruck 109 to 86. Against Brunridge, he was outstruck 20 to 10 and gave up a knockdown. And against Armin Petrosian, at the time of stoppage, he was being outstruck 9 to 6. In 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, in 7 UFC fights, he's been numerically outstruck in 6 of them, with one of them being 5-5. So like his striking is always going to be him getting hit more times than he's hitting his opponent. And then I think if he can't get the takedowns, just like you're saying. So I look back, I said, okay, the Derek Brunson grappling match. Well, that's a solid takedown over Derek Brunson to submit him. And I watched the tape back. It's on YouTube. He grabs his single leg and then takes Derek down and then chases after that head and arm choke. But Andre Petroski's got college wrestling background, BJJ black belt, competes in a lot of BJJ tournaments, very physically strong, well put together guy. If he can sprawl and brawl him, even though he's super low volume, like you mentioned, probably figures to at least have some type of striking advantage, a power advantage, a youth. No, I don't know, they're basically the same age, but I see the same stuff that you're picking up. And then that last thing is like, why is Rodolfo this big of a favorite, right? Well, it's because Rodolfo was initially supposed to fight Jacob Malkoun. Andre Petroski is replacing Malkoun, who pulled out due to injury, so it's perceived as short notice. But the weird thing is that he took this fight in late December. So he's known about it for like 6, 7 weeks. And after his last win in the UFC, he did an interview where they were like, who do you want to fight next? And he's like, Rodolfo Vieira, because I know I can beat that guy. I think my jiu-jitsu is as good as his. Well, it's not, but he believes it, and that's self-confidence is a hell of a thing, but also that he has a wrestling advantage and a striking advantage. So he already wanted this opponent. Late December, they say, do you want to step in and take on this guy that you already want to fight? He says, yes, it's not short notice to me. He's got basically a full camp. He already believes his style can beat this. He's the betting underdog. The line on a 35-year-old BJJ guy is too wide, and yeah, I pick up the exact same stuff that you're putting down, dude. So I would say Andre Petroski for another upset victory.
Boy, oh boy, didn't expect Cody to be taken, or oh, I guess, oh, you took Petroski to get the dub.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, interesting. So we're on different sides, but like I have no interest in touching the favorite in Vieira there, on the money line. Probably just it's an overs game for me.
You get
Um,
dropped by Cody Brunridge. If you're losing a fight to Cody Brunridge, you could lose to anybody in the division, as far as
Fair.
I'm concerned. So I don't mind it. And Petroski just grappled his Pat Downey in a grappling match, like after his last fight. You could see it on Tapology. But go watch that back. Pat Downey's like a super decorated, high level wrestler. And yeah, he stuffs a few takedowns. He doesn't look bad. This guy's amped up, ready to go. You could do worse, man. I think he's got a legitimate chance at pulling through.
I think I still have like, you know, I have some sort of complex from
I like your over 1.5 though.
yeah. I think I still have some sort of complex from like watching him ram his head into Malcolm's hip and dying on the spot. That one still beats me down. I wake up in the middle of the night in cold sweats thinking about that one because I think we had a shoey bet on that
Yeah, well, you know me, I love Jacob Malkoun. So if you want to make an excuse for Petroski in that one, is when you look at Malkoun's stats, right? He took down Nick Maximov 9 times. He took down Brandon Allen 7 times, AJ Dobson 6 times, Abdul Razak Al Hassan 8 times. And yet in his fight with Petroski, I think he went over three. Over three didn't even really get close. And Malkoun's a really solid wrestler. So if you can replicate, and you already mentioned all this, you can replicate what Chris Curtis did, which is just stuff the takedowns and box this guy up, you'll have success. And whereas Petroski is a low volume guy because he's taking on a 35-year-old Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu ace, that low volume actually might be good enough. So he doesn't have huge power, he's jacked up, but he took 3 rounds to take Michael Gallimore out of there. And, prior to that, he doesn't have a whole lot of knockout wins, but again, it's punchy kicky. If you land the right shot, anybody could go down.
yeah, you're not gonna get too much of a fight out of me. But yeah, I'm mostly looking at the over 1.5, maybe fight goes to decision on that fight. All right, next up we've got Jose Delgado taking on Connor Matthews. Delgado minus 323 favorite. Matthews can be had 4 plus 262. Delgado, we saw him on Contender Series. He had a fight against Ernie Suarez. Suarez, we broke down actually over on the Patreon for his A1 combat fight this past weekend. Didn't go well from there either. But what we saw from Delgado, and he's training at the MMA lab, is pressure fighter, lots of combinations into takedowns, very very aggressive, kind of like what you see from him. It seems to have a lot of faith in his chin, and contender series guys are always a little bit tricky when they slap a minus 300 price tag on them. Don't get me wrong, but what did we see from Connor Matthews in his fight there last time out against Bazookia? One, I went back watched that fight. It's like sure it ends with a knockdown and like an actual finish in round 3, but it's like Bazookia rocks him a few times over the course of that fight. It was not a great performance by any stretch of the imagination. Um, Everything that I've watched on tape between the two of these guys just kind of leads me towards thinking that eventually, over the course of 3 rounds, Delgado by knockout will happen. Now that being said, the original openers were like plus 275. They got battered down to like plus 175. I'm waiting for more books to open up. Maybe we can get like plus 240, something like that. Not willing to jump the gun on like the juice numbers that just got dropped right now. Hoping over the course of the week somebody adds something. But if it comes down to plus 200 is the best, plus 200, Jose Delgado by knockout will be my official play for this fight. What's your take here?
Yeah, I agree. I think he knocks out Connor Matthews. Connor Matthews is a really tough guy, but that's about it. And you've seen these guys before, same gym as a Jay Perrin or a Brendan Marat or a Chris Moutinho. Whereas they're tough and they are willing to throw down, but that's about where it ends. Now, it's not necessarily his fault, is that he starts his amateur career back in 2011, but then he takes off like 6 or 7 years from the sport to join a career in the armed forces. They call him the controller. It's because he was a radio antenna controller in the armed forces for a number of years. Once he comes out, it's like, let's fight. And the year he got back into MMA is the same year he ends up turning pro. Here's the problem, Paul. His pro career, his debut against Stacey Anderson, the guy was 0-7. Lost that fight, never fought again. His next fight, Rob Fuller, 1-8 and 1-8. Rob Fuller's like currently 2-20. Josh Mayer, 2-1. That guy's currently 3-5. Jay Ellis, 15-97. Josh Henry, 1-2. And now you're on the contender series. So I don't care that you're 5-0. He fought specifically the worst guys possible. and now you're on the Contender Series. Well, on that fight against Francis Marshall, he gets taken down 6 times, he gets hit 111 times, and yet he doesn't get knocked out. He gets wobbled 3 or 4 times. His face is hella busted. So they don't give him a contract. Obviously, he loses. He goes on the regional scene. He wins 2 fights. They bring him back. And then that fight that he was brought back in on the Contender Series against this Yair Farias, the guy's 6'1", 6'2" at 145 pounds. So like he had the weirdest frame. And in that fight, Matthews is able to offensively take him down 6 or 7 times. But watch the fight back. He gets rocked and he gets wobbled a bunch of times. Specifically in the third round, he gets hit a couple times where he's, looks like he could go down. Ends up winning the fight, and two judges' scorecards 30-27 and 129-28. But all the same, it's like his striking defense is not that good. His wrestling is really not that good. There's nothing about him is all that good. And he's 32 years old, so it's like it's hard to believe that his skills are going to incrementally get that much better. Yeah, he's got like 10 pro fights, so he will continue to get a little more comfortable, a little more seasoned, a little more polished, a little more veteran savvy, but he's got a big, long uphill climb. So that Bazookia fight, it's the same thing. I've seen him already rocked by Yair. I've seen him rocked by Francis Marshall. He's going to go down at some point. It's a fun fight, it's a competitive fight, but the first 2, 3 minutes of the first round, this kid's foot on the pedal. He's going forward, he's throwing down combinations. The last 2 minutes of the first round, he's getting hit and he's second guessing himself. He gets rocked with a couple left hooks. He gets countered every time he throws first, so now he doesn't want to throw first. He starts to stiffen up. Second round, he gets doubled up on the significant strike numbers. Third round, he gets knocked out right at the beginning of it. So, again, I don't think his chin's that good. He's got 2 amateur losses as well. Both of them are by knockout, including one in 4 seconds and one, I guess it would have been 5.5 minutes into the fight. So been knocked out twice as an amateur, been knocked out once now as a pro, gets hit a lot in all of his fights, and no real plan B that he can go to and shoot these takedowns. Delgado's only one issue that I can fault this kid with, because I like him, is that he's hyper aggressive. He's 26, he doesn't know any better. This is what works for him, so he just goes and he throws down. His last loss comes just in 2023 against this Chris Makate by unanimous decision. But Chris Makate is a training partner of Cub Swanson. He also wrestled collegiately at Old Dominion, so he's able to just take him down at will and grind him. But outside of that, if you want to stand with Delgado, he likes to throw, as Paul mentioned, in long combinations. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's a knee up the middle. There's an elbow off the top. There's a spinning back kick to the body. Like, he don't stop, but because he doesn't know any better. The better quality of opponents that are going to be able to drag him out to the late second into that third round, make it go the distance, they're going to be able to take advantage of the fact that this kid will slow down naturally. You can't throw combinations like that all night. But it's working for him for the time being, and boy, oh boy, it's something hard to deal with. So even in the Ernie Juarez fight, the commentators are like, oh, he's slowing down, then spinning back into the body. It's like, well, how much is he slowing down? Flying knee up the middle. Like, maybe he's conserving himself. I don't know. I am worried that this kid could blow his load early, but Connor Matthews doesn't have the durability or the gamesmanship to force that. So as a result, Delgado smokes right through him. I like that knockout prop, truth be told. Just not an inside the distance kind of guy myself. But truth be told, I think he just batters Connor Matthews and probably puts him away. So again, we're on the same side on this one, Paul.
All right, we got Angela Hill taking on Ketlen Souza. It's a straight pick 'em, homie. -109 on both sides at Coolbet Canada. What you got here?
I'll go with Angela Hill, but there's no real good reason. She's 40 years old. She fights at 115 pounds. Like, at some point, the speed is just going to get to you. And noticeably, similar to Jared Cannonier, is that noticeably the last 2 fights, since they've not, you don't just hit 40 and all starts to fall apart, but noticeably, yeah, they're starting to regress as fighters in their own right. Thing is that Ketlen Souza is just all power. Like, she has to throw heavy power. Her ground game's not very good. She gets taken down a pile of times on the regional scene, and then in her UFC debut against Karine Silva, the pre-fight interview, Karine Silva's like, "Oh, me and my team have specifically outlined a giant hole in her grappling game, and that's what we're gonna exploit." And then literally does exactly that. Just takes her down immediately with, a decent takedown, not a great takedown, but takes her down, flips to a leg lock, and literally tears up her ligaments and causes her to yell out in pain. So that is the hole in the game, is the grappling. And when you think Angela Hill is just a one-dimensional striker, as of late she's not above mixing in takedowns. 5 against Denise Gomez, coming off a submission victory. All things that we didn't think possible back in the day are maybe now a little bit more on the table for her. But anyways, talking about Souza, her next fight with Marna Chman, she got taken down twice, and she actually got swept with a Kimura as well. So she ended up on her back 3 times in that fight against Marna Chman. Her fight with Yasmin Yergui, it's a weird one. At the time of submission and knockdown, because she knocks her down, then grabs the neck and chokes her out. But at the time of finish, she's getting outstruck 35-21. But she eye pokes Yergui. They take a break. They resume. Yergui low blows her. They take a break. They resume. She low blows Yergui. They take a break. And then off that third break, 12 seconds after that break, she lands the knockdown that leads to the submission. So there's no flow. It's stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. Kicked you in the cooch. Now I drop you with a left hook. Like you're not in any type of rhythm. So she's a big power girl, but I think she's a little bit lower on volume and doesn't have a great grappling game. Angela Hill's savvy enough that she should be able to put the proper game plan together. Hill's actually 4-6 in her career against Brazilians, but those Brazilians include Tabitha Ricci, Mackenzie Dern, technically Brazilian, I'm saying, Verna Jandaroba, Menda Lemos, Claudia Gadelha. Like she's fought in all the best of them. She's generally able to just keep the fight standing, use her volume, then that would be the approach to use to win. So Angela Hill probably doesn't have a lot of great performances left in her, but I think this could be a great, send off, a great one last career moment. Go out there, hustle her up, outland her, stop the takedowns that you need to, and ultimately get the decision victory. So I'll take some Angela Hill.
Decision victory officially.
Well, the over 2.5 minus
It's
550, I'm pretty
so
sure. So,
dude.
like, yeah, like I think everybody thinks it's going to go to decision, but
Of
it's women's
course.
MMA. So, like,
And
why
she,
do
Ketlen Souza, let's face it,
it?
what, 2 of her 3 UFC fights have been finished in the first round. She knocked out Yasmin Yariqui, or knocked her down, and then it was a club and sub type of situation, and then Karina Silva knee bar. But Karina Silva does those types of things to people, so those are probably a little bit of outliers. But even when you go back to a regional scene, lots of finishes, lots of everything like that. I mean, once you get over to over 2.5 minus 526 at coolbet.com, uh, I start looking at the other side.
Fair.
I'm a greedy one like that,
I
Cody.
know, I know, but Hill, keep in mind, Hill's
She's
got,
a decision machine,
but
100%. But
she's got 14 losses in the UFC or something like that. Rose subbed her and Ronda Marco subbed her, and that was in 2019, her last submission loss. And then after that, nobody finishes her. Jan beat her by decision, Claudia Gadelha by split decision, Michelle Watterson split decision, Tisha Pennington by decision, Amanda Lemos split decision, Verna Jandaroba by decision, Mackenzie Dern by decision, Tabitha Ricci by decision. Never been knocked out. Been submitted last time was 6 years ago.
I'm saying that
Man,
can Hill get the finish?
oh,
Can
can
Hill get
Hill
the
get the
finish?
finish? Oh, it's on Paul Shaughnessy.
Let's see how disgusting we can get here. You're probably gonna want to puke when I think about what I'm thinking about. When I bring up what I'm thinking about
Take her
right
by submission. That
now.
if you could
Yeah.
get a crazy price on that, especially if you
It's
could get us,
probably pretty wide. I mean, she got the sub against Pinheiro, so
yeah,
it's not going to be
possible.
as sneaky this time around. Hill by sub is plus 1,600. I mean,
Possible.
if I were a
Possible.
betting man, which I am, that's something that I may degen into. Just a taste. You know, I don't have to go. I don't have to be rich or broke because of Angela Hill by submission. But yeah, I mean it's yeah plus 1,500. Salt Bay, the Salt Bay emoji or whatever meme. I suppose it's actually called. That's what the kids are saying these days, right, Jared?
Me machine.
Um, all right, we got
This is
Jared
true.
Gordon. This is true. We got Jared Gordon taking on Mashrabjon Ruziboev, minus 280 for Jared Gordon, Mashrabjon Ruziboev, Little Ruziboev is what I'm going to be calling him.
Little Ruzy.
Little Ruzi. I actually like that even more. Plus 240. This fight was just added like Wednesday morning, maybe Tuesday night. Jared Gordon was supposed to be on this card, and his opponent obviously pulled out. Got off the top of my head who he was fighting. He was supposed to be fighting Coway Fernandez. The fight was a little bit closer lined. I was watching some tape on Little Ruzi, and he's very similar to his brother in a lot of ways. Obviously, he's
Kill.
way smaller. His brother's like 6'5", tried fighting at like welterweight, which was like insane. Like I think he's only like 5'11". He's been absolutely can crushing his last couple of opponents. Like these guys have like my type of physique and they're stepping in there. Like it's a tough scene watching some of those fights. But that's besides the point. The guy just throws haymakers, throws heaters. Do I think Jared Gordon wins? Yes. Do I think that the takedown should, in theory, go back to the old Jared Gordon? Lots of takedowns, pressure, wear this guy down. You got to get that takedown early because it's dangerous. But like I've even seen this guy Ruziboev taken down, and then in round 2, after spending a whole bunch of time on his back, still causing some problems for his opponent by knocking him down in round 2. I think it was like Brave CF fought some French dude, like a half decent opponent.
Ayub. Yeah.
Yes, I
But
mean
he is
Ayub.
good.
I
He
was
is
watching
good.
that fight in advance because I was like, all right, I had to look through. Like I watched a couple of these fights. I'm like, well, this is not like a fair representation of like the level of competition that he's coming into facing Jared Gordon. Went back and watched that. Just like, yeah, he's grappling very, very, questionable at best. Gets taken down even against lower level competitions very easily, and most of the time it's because he overcommits to throwing a haymaker. So, I think Jared Gordon wins. I think the takedown should be there easy. Considering unders in this play, I know how you feel about unders. And Jared Gordon, historically, it's like not always the biggest finish machine. He will drag guys along, play it kind of safe if he's able to get those takedowns. We'll see where like the props and stuff open up though. But if you can like a Ruzi like KO one, if that's like super super long, like I'm not gonna be shocked. The guy literally throws fastballs. That's pretty much all he does, and to his own detriment and success most of the time. So Gordon is the pick. I expect him to win. I expect him to get takedowns, but I will not be shocked if he just, you know, takes an absolute Louisville slugger upside the head. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, it was a good live betting spot because if Jared Gordon gets out of the first round, I think it's probably game over. Like Little Ruzy's got a history of this. These again, you can't debate the numbers. These are the numbers. His last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, 9 of his last 11 fights have ended in the first round. And he wins those fights. And it's very salty level of competition. But if he's fighting a guy that either exists, maybe doesn't even exist, or is there to take a rollover, he finishes in the first round. The 2 fights that did get out of the very first round are the 2 fights that he lost. He lost to Amin Ayub. Vladimir Kanukov, we just watched him get no contest on LFA for
He
ripping a
dominated.
guy's trachea out.
That guy
Like,
screwed me on a couple parlays.
I'm gonna
That
pass
that
on
that
that.
that situation screwed me on a couple parlays because we were looking good.
Yeah, of course, of course. But I mean, if you're looking at topology, you're seeing his record, right? It's like, okay, well, which one of these fights got out of the first round? There's Danyar Ismailov, and I can't find the tape, right? But that gets out of the first round. He wins a majority decision over a guy that's 12-17.
Mm-hmm.
The kicker is it's a majority decision. So one of the 3 judges saw fit that the fight was a draw, and the other 2 judges scored it for Little Ruzi, who presumably gassed out. Now, okay, you're making a presumption. That's fair. But when you look at the other fights that he's losing, it's generally when it gets out of the first round. Now, yeah, he's an offensive dynamo, but how good really is his offense? So that bears question of who's he fighting, okay? So this is an unbelievable run. It's an unbelievable run that he fights 0-0 guy. This is 2019, okay? 0-0 Mizam Zoloshbey. The very next opponent is also 0-0. Then he fights another guy that's 0-0, another 0-0, another 0-0, and then 0-7. And then he lost to him in the Ayub. Point being is that how do you find 6 guys making their debuts? Oh, and by the way, Kusan Shermanov, an 0-0 in 2019 that he won a majority decision over. One judge had it a draw. That guy's 0-0 and never fought ever again, but yet he fights 6 of them in a row. Little bit weird.
Oh, for
Okay.
sure.
This is where it gets start real getting salty. 0-2. You're 15-4, but you're fighting an 0-2. Okay. Then you see he's got a Kirill Medovsky. This fight's 2023. If you click on Kirill Medovsky, he's a former Bellator veteran, but he's flagged by Tapology for having thrown fights. If you look at Krill's last 5 fights, he got knocked out in 7 seconds, 59 seconds, 12 seconds, 14 seconds, and 22 seconds.
They all have hazard signs on
Well, because now he's red flagged as
them.
he's
100%.
throwing fights. They know he's throwing fights. They've asked the promotions to send the tape. They've refused the tape. They've deemed that it's a fixed fight. So they're red flagging him that if you fought this guy, chances are it's not a real fight. That fight gets canceled. They replace him with a guy that's 8-9. So he takes the fight at 170 and he ground and pounds him in 38 seconds. You went from we're gonna take this guy that it's a fixed fight, we're gonna kick his ass, it's fixed. That guy says, shit, dude, I just got flagged. You can't fight him no more. Commissions won't give him a license. We'll just bring in this other salty 8-9. It begs question of how many of those 0-0 guys he fought, 0-2 guys, maybe that they weren't necessarily fake, but how many of them are just like completely non-competitive? So yeah, he's got a big high finish ratio, fighting guys that shouldn't be in there in the first place, that are specifically picked out so he can get into the UFC. And his brother, as you mentioned, his brother's twice his size, and yet little Ruzi, more than half of his career fights are out also 170. He's half the guy's size. In fact, he's fought as high as 185. Jared Gordon used to fight at 145. When you see them next to each other, there's no size difference. No real size difference. Jared Gordon's shorter, sure. Um, I don't know, man. It seems so fraudulent. It just seems like a built record. They need a guy short notice. He's in the US. He has a visa. He's training with his brother. He puts his hand up. He shows like a 95% career finish ratio. He's the guy.
I think they
Now,
train with
yeah.
Petroski in Philly. Like that's where Big Ruzi spends his time stateside, is like with Petroski and Joe Pfeiffer and all of them. So I
Yeah.
think he probably is training with them. He just happens to be, you know, going to the event for whatever reason to see his buddy Andre fight, and they're like, "Hey, you look like you could fight. Why don't you fight Jared Gordon?"
Well, it's like the guy at the press conference. He asks Dana White, he's like, "Can I have a contract?" And Dana's like, "I don't know, man. What's your record?" He's like, "No, no, no." He's like, "Deal." And they give him a they give him a developmental contract and he lost that, so he's done. But this is the same thing. It's like I'll fight him. It's like, well, what's your record? 20-4. Like 18 finishes in the first round or something stupid. Sure. Sure, sounds good. Now, Jared Gordon, at one point I was like, this guy's cooked. He cannot take a punch. But he hasn't been knocked out since 2019. And that the run of three knockout losses in 4 fights that made him just washed is Diego Ferreira, Joaquim Silva, and Charles Oliveira. So like
Doesn't
I
look so
actually
bad in
think
hindsight.
bro, they're three Brazilian bombers.
Mhm.
Joaquim, people might say, well, who's he? He almost knocked the piss out of Arman Saruki, and he had him absolutely dazed. He's
Did.
a banger. Ferreira's a banger. Charles Oliveira, banger. 3 Brazilian guys knock him out. Since then, yeah, held up. Got robbed against Paddy Pimblett, but looked good in that fight. Bobby Green, technically he did get knocked out, but a headbutt had caused him to lose his equilibrium. Mark Madsen fight, brawls it up with him, stuffs the takedown, knocks him out with a short little left hook early in the first round, or near the end of the first round, I should say. And then Nazareth just throws down. He's like a Court McGee type. Not because he also died of a heroin overdose and had to be brought back from the death, but just that in his older years he's become a pretty good veteran fighter. Knows what he does well, knows what his opponents do poorly, and fights to his strengths. So coming off a week where these guys were like, let's stand and bang for 50 grand. Give me Jared Gordon that's going to be able to go out there, dictate what he wants to do, slow things down, turn this into a grind, tire out little Ruzi, put him away. I love overs, but I think this is another fight that likely either Ruzi clips him in the first or Gordon. If it's over 1.5, okay, I'll take that because I think Gordon takes him out like later in the second. But in terms of like a 2.5 or fight goes the distance, someone's getting finished in this thing either way.
If Ruzi here, I'll just make a shoey bet on. I will do a 6-pack of seltzer shoeys. You have no risk whatsoever. If Ruzi wins by decision, free of charge
Interesting.
for the entertainment of the Dogger Pass faithful, I'll just be boot after boot after boot. Like Ruzi decision seems like almost impossible in this situation.
Truthfully, I agree. But they robbed him against Paddy Pimblett, so who knows? But I don't think it makes it 15 minutes either way. So I'm going to agree with you.
Jared Gordon gets the takedown. And frankly, it's like the way that this number is right now, it's like I don't think there's any value on Ruzi yet. Like he's like meme or bust from everything I've watched. All right, we got Rafael Estevam taking on Jesus Aguilar, minus 357 for Estevam, plus 285 for Aguilar. Your thoughts?
Oh, there's what should happen and what's gonna happen. What should happen, I know the answer. What's gonna happen, who the hell knows? But I would think that Rafael Estevam, style versus style, this is a style that very much favors him 100%. Here's his problem is that you mentioned he's minus 400 right now.
Nice. Cool, but I believe have him still. Probably not for much longer, but they had him at minus 357. Have they moved that yet? He's still minus 357 at 3:18 p.m. in the one true time zone, Atlantic.
Well, fair enough, fair enough. In that case, yeah, he's a minus 350 favorite. And Estevam's 12-0. He's 28 years old. It sounds good, but he hasn't fought in a year and a half. He botched a weight cut in his last fight against Charles Johnson. And in that Johnson fight, he won a unanimous decision. He got outstruck 72 to 18, and he won a unanimous decision. The third round, which it was 29-28, they all had him losing the third round. But the third round, he got outstruck 54 to 9 against Charles Johnson. Now Johnson ends up being pretty good. Point being is that he's kind of low volume. Like he can take you down, but there's not a whole lot of ground and pound. The submission not bad on the regional scene. Brute. His ground and pound sick. His submission game is solid. But in the UFC, it's like seems like he's trying to just hold down the position. Good news is he's really big for the weight class. In fact, who knows how he makes weight. But also just like yeah, he's a strong wrestler, strong grappler, and if he's willing to staple his opponent down to the mat for 15 minutes, who am I to judge? Take my money. On the contender series against Joao Elias, again, guy was 17-2 Brazilian, although he wasn't really anything special, but takes him down, beats him up. Against Charles Johnson, didn't beat him up, but certainly did take him down. And then you got this near 2 year long layoff, year and a half long layoff. So what can you expect? Who knows? But Brazilian fighters typically they take these layoffs. They're still young. They come back. They're pretty good, man. Like they're not just sitting around. They're always improving and working on their skills. I got to see him at the scales because I got to see what the weight cut looks like. Is he getting bigger? Is he developing? Is he thickening out? Why did he fail the weight cut last time? Was he able to address any type of issues? If he misses again, second time in a row, and the layoff, it's all problematic, cause for concern when you're betting a minus 350. But his style just beats Jesus Aguilar's. Aguilar, there's no knock on him other than a 36% takedown defense. Like he just can't stop the takedown. And on the contender series against Erickson Ferreira, he got taken down. Tatsuya Taira took him down once and then subbed him immediately. Matus Mendonca took him down 4 times. And then Stuart Nickel, yeah, he ends up in a guillotine choke, but did take him down. He's got a great guillotine choke on. He's got multiple victories by guillotine. He's a strong guy physically. He's a scrappy fighter. His punch resistance is very good. His takedown defense is a massive flaw in his game, and that's quite literally exactly where Rafael Estevam is going to play this thing too. So I guess similar to last week, what was it? Jack Jenkins versus David Santos. It's the same thing. It's that level of grappling disparity and path to victory, and it's up to them to go out there and take it. But I think Estevam, especially because he doesn't want to overextend himself striking after the layoff, he'll do exactly that. And I don't see any type of adjustment from Jesus Aguilar to suggest that he's going to stuff the takedowns or that his little guillotine is going to work in this spot. In fact, he probably pulls guard onto a guillotine, doesn't get it, and all of a sudden spends 4 minutes on his back. Not a good look. Give me Estevam. Flyweights, layoff, weight miss, all reasons that you would not like a minus 357 price tag, but he is the rightful pick.
We'll see if the gas tank holds up a little bit because that was, if you go back and look at the fight against Charles Johnson, that's where a lot, like round 3, is where he kind of got himself into a bit of trouble. It was pretty smooth sailing. 3 minutes and 49 seconds of control time in round 1, 3 minutes and 55 seconds of control time in round 2. And then, Charles Johnson gets 62 of 88 strikes in round 3, 54 of 80 significant strikes. So it was one of those types of situations where he still held on. He still got the unanimous decision by winning the first 2 rounds very, very clearly. Sale of a guillotine here. This isn't Charles Johnson. And frankly, Charles Johnson, since that fight, has went on a hell of a run. So that win looks a lot better, even in hindsight. And then, his Dana White Contender Series fight wasn't even particularly competitive. Got the takedowns, smashed away. Should be able to get the takedowns. He's just got one major, hurdle, and that's just don't get caught in the damn guillotine. Like, if you were preparing for a fight with Jesus Aguilar, just like you better have been practicing how you set up your takedowns, where you leave your neck when you're entering, and how to get out when it is clasped on, like, what side to jump on, so on and so forth. Easier said than done, but we see it all the time. So I think Estevam will be ready. Um, minus 400 or minus 357 is obviously a good price at cool bet, but minus 400 where the market's going right now. I mean, it's still flyweight. These guys are all very good and competitive, but yeah, takedown should be there. Hopefully, he's worked on his cardio. We'll wait for weigh-ins to formalize a final pick, I suppose. But Estevam is a pick for me as well. We've got Gabriel Bonfim taking on Khaos Williams. Gabriel is a minus 227 favorite. Khaos can be had plus 189. Who you got?
I don't know, man. I think I'm just gonna roll with Bonfim and just have a. I got both Bonfim brothers this week, but it's a fight you could see going either way. Like I've always been a Chaos Williams supporter. I back him because he's very one-dimensional. He's got killer power in both hands. He stands his ground and he throws down. But offensively, he's not a threat with his wrestling. He has a 0% takedown accuracy because he just doesn't shoot takedowns at all. So that's a whole element of his game that just doesn't exist. It's mixed martial arts. He ain't using one of those arts whatsoever. So yeah, he's reduced to just banging it out. And he's not he'll throw leg kicks, almost like a rangefinder, little leg kick, and then try to bomb one on you. But for the most part, it's just like a left hand and a right hand. So the longer you fight, guys will figure you out. Now he blows up in the UFC. First two wins are both first round knockouts. 27 seconds against Alex Morono, nice win. Abdul Razak Al Hassan in 30 seconds, Dece. Miguel Bailey knocks out in the third in his last fight against Carlson Harris, minute 30. So, ain't no doubt about it. Like, he hits you, it's going to be problematic. But you should be able to just know, okay, these are the tools he's bringing to the table, and I can, kind of bring a more multifaceted game plan forward. Gabriel Bonfim should do that. Now, what I see is that he was undefeated. He's the good Bonfim, as Paul says. He's undefeated. He's on this hell of a run. But when you're undefeated, it's like you don't know what you don't know. Because you think you're undefeated. You think you're unbeatable. You think what you're doing is going to work against everybody. You can win a world champion doing this exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Against Trey Waters, he goes hard. Now at the time of submission, Von Fluchuk, he's looking tired, but he subs him. And then against Munir Laziz, 49 seconds into the first round, and he subs him. Trevin Giles, minute 13 in the first round, another guillotine choke, subs him. Dalby did what Dalby does, which is make it a dogfight and extend him. Bonfim starts off really good. The longer the fight goes, he tires. He gasses. So similar to his brother rebounding from his loss against Benoit Saint Denis against Vince Pichel, going a full 15 minutes and landing 111 significant strikes. You have the same thing here. Bonfim goes a full 15 minutes. He lands 101 significant strikes. Cardio looked okay. Striking looked not bad. The thing is he gave up 4 takedowns to Angeluso, which is super problematic. But Chaos Williams doesn't shoot takedowns, so like all
Like,
he has to worry about is the striking. I think the numbers are going to be similar. I think the power is going to be similar. I think Bonfim just ends up being a little craftier and ends up hustling up a decision. But I expect a very close fight. I do.
yeah, I feel like if you have like the submission skills that Gabriel Bonfim has too, it's like you're not that opposed, especially early. 3 of the 9, or when, yeah, Angeluso was 3 of 9 on takedowns in round one, 2 minutes of control time. But it's like you're not that opposed to like putting yourself on the mat when everyone's dry at the beginning of fights because you have faith that maybe you can get a submission, get out of there, with a bonus check and all of that type of stuff. I thought he kind of showed a lot, particularly in rounds 2 and 3. It killed me because I'm pretty sure I was on unders. You know me betting unders and stuff, and Lusa fights are usually going to the decision. So I was like, this is the perfect recipe, and got burned. Got burned on that fight for sure. But I thought he showed a lot, just being able to put up 100 significant strikes over the course of that fight, being able to extend himself after learning the lesson the hard way against Nicholas Dalby, going way too hot and just not leaving enough for the back nine. I thought he kind of showed a lot against Angeluso, and the fact that like it was round 3, like the guy landing all the good strikes, the guy causing all of the damage was Bonfim. So he kind of surprised me in that situation. The chin, I guess he got knocked down by by Dalby, but that was, correct me if I'm wrong. That was round 2, basically
He got roughed up. He just
when he
got
was
tired.
tired, broken down, everything like that.
Speaking of tired and broken down, Chaos Williams earned a high school diploma through an online program while incarcerated in Jackson County Jail while being convicted for selling cocaine. So it's like hard times, dude. This would be a fight between two guys that want a better life and are going to throw down. I just hope that Bonfim's able to pull it together. The loss, I think, will make him a better fighter. So sounds like you're on the same page. You taking Bonfim as well?
I'm taking Bonfim as well. Michel Pereira was able to get 2 takedowns. I think that's going to be the real key for Bonfim early. I don't know if I'm going to be betting Bonfim at at minus 227. He is my official pick. I feel like I feel like a lot of the or especially Gabriel Bonfim fights. My biggest edge will be in trying to get a feel for it in the live markets. Minus 227 free flop. I mean, it'll make like super degen long shot parlays and stuff, but I won't be attaching too much money to it because I think at that price, there's a lot. Chaos still hits pretty hard. He hasn't knocked out anybody significantly in a while, but
Well, his last fight against
maybe he's
Carlson
due.
Harris, he smoked him. But I think the point you're making, and this is the same reason I'm on it, is that the two fights before that, Randy Brown, right? He knocked down Randy Brown, but Randy Brown just used the jab, fought long, and was just outstruck him 93 to 75. The Rolando Bedoya fight, he's a big favorite. Bedoya is
That's the
completely
fight.
unheralded. Yeah, and Bedoya lands him 149 to 130. He won a split decision. I thought he lost the split decision, truth be told, but I had so much money on him that it didn't matter at the time. But the reality of it, and you watch it back, is that if you're capable of losing to a complete out of left field, but did he go on to do anything? No, he lost to Song Kanan after that, and then Jai Herbert, and then
And
I
he
believe
moved
he got
down to
released.
150. Yeah, we moved down to 155, and equally as bad.
Yeah, so the fact that a guy like that can stretch you is that you're so one-dimensional that if someone's throwing elbows and knees and front kicks and leg kicks, it's so much more to look at that you're prone to maybe just getting out hustled. Brown fought long, outworked him. Bedoya fought long, outworked him. Carlson Harris got completely flatlined in 90 seconds, so it never materialized. And he's not really known for striking anyhow, so Bonfim, it should be different. Having his brother on the card, hopefully that motivates him. But he's fighting first, so it's up to him to keep the good times a rolling, or at least kickstart the good times, and his brother will hopefully keep them rolling.
Chaos has a 5-inch reach advantage. That's a little bit scary, but yeah. I mean, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for Chaos to land an absolute heater against really anybody.
It gets
So
hard, yeah, no doubt, no
Bonfim
doubt.
is the pick for me, but like my confidence in laying minus 227 is not all the way. Elijah Smith takes on Vince Morales. Elijah Smith is a minus 161 favorite. Morales can be had for plus 140. This is like one of the heavy movers, heavy shakers in the markets this week. As early as today, the 12th, 2 days ago, Elijah Smith was bet down as low as like minus 240. And people were like, no, 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 no. I guess everyone kind of went and looked at that contender series fight against that Aaron Tower or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
and Tao.
that was I mean, it's contender series. They're on that show for a reason. That was it was a pretty ugly performance, though. Like, I don't know if this guy Tao is obviously super, super tough. He's got like crazy Maori, tattoos on his face, looks very, very intimidating, all of that. But we saw the limitations of Elijah Smith, and I can't fault people who jumped on the Morales train at that price because, with Elijah Smith, we did see that like maybe the cardio's not all there. He had an opponent that really couldn't wrestle all that much, and then yeah, round three went 0 for 3 on takedowns. Got doubled up in significant strikes, like took a little bit of damage, looked super tired. Now we got Morales, who had been around the block. He's was in the octagon, didn't have a great run his first time around. Now he's back. I don't think he's any sort of elite guy by any stretch of the imagination, but what he does have going for him is experience. And the wrestling, I mean, he took down Taylor Lapillus twice. I guess Jonathan Martinez took him down I don't know really what happened with the Morales and the takedown. Either way, um, I'm gonna take Morales, but I feel like I missed the boat on the number here. We'll see where it goes over the course of the week, but from what I saw, I know it's a small sample size. Um, Elijah Smith against a proven veteran or somewhat proven veteran, a proven loser in fairness at the UFC level, but a veteran nonetheless. Maybe it may be a little bit too much for Elijah Smith. Another fight I don't really feel like I'm going to be betting all that much on, but Morales will be the pick. We'll see where the number gets by the end of the week. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm conflicted because Morales is 3-6 in the UFC, and my record on betting him is 6-3. I have faded him all 9 times. The 3 times he won, I took a bath. The 6 times he lost, I was all about it. He's so low volume. There's no X, there's no big power, there's no big volume. There's nothing. He's just serviceable. Tough guy, serviceable. But there's nothing really that I love about his game. It's that he's been around long enough that he's a savvy veteran, and all of a sudden he went back to the regional scene. He collected a couple really nice submission victories. He subbed Teruto Ishihara. Comes back to the UFC, and yeah, he fought Tyler Lapilus, even though he gets tripled up on the significant strikes. There's something admirable about him. His wrestling, listen, the guy's a state champion wrestler in high school out of Oregon, one of the top states for wrestling, and he had a scholarship at Boise State. Ended up dropping out due to personal reasons, but all the same, this is somebody that does come from a wrestling base, has wrestled for a long time, can keep this fight standing against Elijah Smith, who one would have to think is going to use that speed, athleticism, and wrestling to try to get the fight to the ground. If he either A, can't get the fight to the ground, or B, is forced to really work for it. They're just not easy. You might be able to take him down, but Lau is from New Zealand. He's a striker. This guy, Vince Morales, is a real wrestler, a real grappler, a real veteran of the game. If you tire trying to get him to the ground, that's when things get sticky for you, for sure, for sure. Vince Morales is at Syndicate MMA, and he's like one of the coaches there now. You watch regional show fights with Paul, we watch regional show fights. Like Vince is cornering half of the team on the regional show. Like he's in it to win it. He's got a good mind. He's got, a decent skill set. It's just that he's taken on some tough fights. Jonathan Martinez, Miles John, Taylor Lapilus. None of those are easy. The times he made me look like a fool, he was the betting underdog against Louis Smolka. He was the betting underdog against Draco Rodriguez. He was a huge underdog against Eamon Zahabi. That one aged pretty well. He's capable of doing it. It just depends on who the opponent is. And Philip Lau, you'll hear me say this, or sorry, Elijah Smith, you'll hear me say this all the time. He's 22. He's born in 2002. He's just got so much ways to go. He's a good fighter, right? He's just not a great fighter. He hasn't excelled yet. He needs 4, 5, 6 more years, 15 more fights. But when you look at him, first round finish, looking good. Reyes Cortez, right? Reyes Cortez is Tracy Cortez's brother
Mhm.
from the Cortez fighting family, who's on the Contender Series, never did end up making it to the UFC. He knocks him out in the third round. It's the same thing as that you tire him out. All of a sudden, he's not as fast, he's not as quick, he's not as explosive. You grind him, you can TKO him, which he does. His run, first round finish. And then Paul mentioned it, the Aaron Tao fight. He looked actually quite good in the first 2 rounds against Tao, I thought. Well, definitely, these are the numbers. Definitely in the first round when he outstruck him 25-2. What a rout in the first round. This kid looks good. The second round, he outstruck him 19-18. Oh shit. It's tightening up. It's close. The third round, he got outstruck 56-31. Takedown's not there. Tired. Getting hit. But you're still only 22. This is not a setback. You won the fight. This is a step forward. But now all of a sudden, the next fight is even tougher. And the next fight is even tougher. And the next fight is even tougher. And all of that just becomes extremely problematic. The thing is that when I look at the numbers, right, is that Vince Morales, he just lands so few and far between, 39 against Lapilus, 39 against Johns, 51 against Martinez, 76 is his career high, and that's 9 fights. Yeah, 76 is his career high between 9 fights. Uh, it's possible that Elijah's faster, outworks him round one, faster, outworks him round two. Vince Morales comes on strong round three, but just doesn't put him away. Similar to the Contender Series, Elijah's going to get the win. Admirable performance from Morales, but too little too late. So I would really be interested in betting this thing live. You mentioned, Paul, that you lost the number. We missed the number because
Mhm.
money's coming on Morales. Just wait till the end of the first round. That's Elijah's best round, no doubt about it. After the first
100%.
round, which he presumably wins, you'll get all of that plus money right back on Vince.
Yep.
That's when you hit it. And just like Lau on the Contender Series, round two close. If it's 1-1 going into the third,
Vince is
cash those
losing.
tickets, baby. But that second round is going to be absolutely clutch. So live betting opportunity for sure. Pre-fight bet. Oh, I've never bet Vince Morales before. So I'll give it a go, but it's gonna be like way low on the list because I can see this thing going not in my favor.
Yeah, I can
By
see a
way of
lot.
him losing the first two rounds, that's it. He'll give you a solid third. I like the overs. Like the overs on this fight. Morales is a decision guy. Harris is probably gonna pace himself a little bit, or Elijah, sorry, is gonna try to pace himself a little bit. Elijah Smith, I said Harris, but Elijah Smith gonna pace himself. Uh, I like overs, but outside of that, straight pick. Give me Vince Morales. Better live betting spot.
God have mercy
God
on
have
us.
mercy. I know.
God have mercy on us all, Cody. Next up, Valter Walker taking on D1, formerly D1 Dontail Mays. Minus 227 for Walker. Mays can be had for plus 189. I mean, I guess Jamil got 2 takedowns. The Kai got a takedown. Andy Anal Swab got 3 takedowns. Rodrigo Nascimento. It's like, I understand why Valter Walker is the favorite here. Mays isn't much of a power puncher by any stretch of the imagination, unless you're a complete putz, which maybe Valter Walker is a bit of one. Dontail Mays stands very upright. Takedown defense definitely a huge liability, and Valter Walker really doesn't do much outside of chase those takedowns, get top control. Um, he's the pick for me, but like these are low level heavyweights, so if something goes very very wrong, I'm not going to be shocked. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. So Walter Walker, he's not really a finisher because he's got a win over Alex Nicholson in 2023 by fourth round retirement. So like, if you're not taking out Alex Nicholson, who is a heavyweight Mike Perry, like he is there to just bang it out for 2 rounds. Like if you're not taking him out, I don't know that he's got some great finishing ability. So I start betting Walter Walker overs. And against Brzezinski, although I took Walter Walker, he did lose. I hit a nice over. Nothing happens. His whole regional show career is takedowns. His takedowns are okay. His ground game's okay. That's how he beats guys. Nobody at heavyweight wrestles or grapples. There's a path to victory here. And then so against Brzezinski, he just didn't do it. Well, he did it later in the fight, but he just waited entirely too long. Now, again, when you're undefeated, you don't know it. This works against everybody. That was a good eye opener for him. So I hammer an over versus Junior Taffa, 1.5. They knew it wasn't going to last long. So 1.5. Okay, I'm in on this. Man, it was looking good. Nothing's happening. And then with like late in the round, Walter Walker takes him down, and because he hears the clapper, he just grabs the leg and drops on like a straight ankle lock. And of course, Tafa, no idea how to grapple, taps out, kills my under. Bottom line though is Walter Walker's debut against Brzezinski is that he was way too hesitant to shoot the takedown. He waited entirely too long. What got him to the UFC, what got him an undefeated record, was out grappling opponents. He's not his brother. He's not Johnny. He's not one for the flair and the big flying knee and the big, theatrics. He's go to your bread and butter. Take these guys down and out grapple them. You're a Brazilian living and training full time in Russia. Fight like a Russian, man. Absolutely. Your name is Valter. Come on, what more do you need? Against Junior, he did that. He got him down, and once he got him down, it's like that's the path of victory. So D1 Dante, as you mentioned, is that he's struggled against wrestlers his entire career. Gaziev, Rodrigo Nascimento, Augusto Sakai, Hamdi Anaswab, Cyril Gahn took him
He
down
had
3 times.
he got the
Alan
nickname.
Crowder took him down twice.
He got
This
the nick.
guy can't do it.
He got the nickname D1 Dontail against Josh Friesen. He got 6 takedowns all of a sudden out of like nowhere. That's where he got that
Yeah, and it's crazy because his takedown accuracy in the UFC is 38%, and all of that is from one singular fight. Outside of that, he's not
Oh,
taking down anybody. And then defensively, yeah, 58. So if you shoot 3 takedowns, one of them's putting him down. And because he's 6'6" with an 81-inch reach, he's so long. Once he gets taken down, he can't create space. He can't scramble. He can't get from underneath you. So what is his advantage standing is to his detriment when he's lying flat on his back, which I would assume Volker is going to get. Now, because Volker blew it so bad against Bershusky, you really got to think his ring IQ is probably not great. And if I learned anything from last week, is it's not who's the better fighter. Who's got the better game plan? Who's going to stick to the better game plan? I don't know for certain that Valker does that, but it looked way better last time where it was like, forget it. I'm just going to take these guys down and do what I do best. And it worked. Do that again against Mays. Mays is a longtime training partner of John Jones, but outside of that, he's not. What's he doing? He's trying to mimic the same striking from distance. Jones could wrestle. Dante can. That long jab, that 81-inch reach, he can't use it and put it into play if he's getting taken down. And we've seen that over and over. Last thing I'll say is the Handy fight. Yeah, he got taken down 3 times, and then you saw Handy just a couple weeks ago. It's like he can't wrestle for nothing, man. He'd still end up winning if you can believe that one. Poor Jamal Pogues. But there's levels to this, and I just don't think these guys are very good. So middling heavyweights, we usually dog or pass, but nah, I think Valker takes him down. Hope he takes him down. And if he does, this is a wrap, but it's up to him, not us.
And OP. All right, finally, we got Jacqueline Cavalcanti taking on Julia Avila, minus 556 for Cavalcanti. Avila can be had for plus 417. Biggest favorite on the card, Cody, and Cavalcanti here.
It's CF Daw model, Paul, really. And I mean,
Is it? Are
yeah,
we
I
doing
think
that?
it is.
Oh.
Just pass altogether. You don't have to bet this fight. First fight on the
Avila,
card, nobody likes it anyways. But
you
there's
always
no way
like
you bet Cavalcanti at this number. No way.
you always like to say that that there was I want to see their real birth certificate and everything like that. Like I'm paraphrasing a little bit for Cody Safdie here.
I have
Correct
said
me
that a
if I'm
lot, so you're
wrong,
not
and
wrong.
this may be like a little bit insensitive. And no, I'm not trying to disrespect anybody. I'm gonna say that, but you always say "but" after you say that. When you're, I feel like Julia Avila rolled in here with gray hair, and I have gray hair, so I'm allowed to say that. Partially gray hair, like she had like grays kind of rocking for many years now. How old was she when she actually rolled in?
Yeah, she's old. She was like 32 when she debuted. And now she's like 37, I want to say.
Yeah.
36.
So what we're almost 2 years removed. Wait, no, like a year, a little bit over a year removed from her getting rear naked choked by Misha Tate, taken down 4 times, 3 significant strikes. Basically, did a whole bunch. Stenko, you got a rear naked choke against Stenko. Jaro Eubanks, is it a dog or pass, or we just pass?
You could 100% just pass on
I
it.
think
I
I'm
get
passing.
that. I think the point of the matter is just don't get caught up on a minus 50 Jacqueline Cavalcanti. As you
Yeah.
mentioned, she's the biggest favorite on the card. So she's got the most likelihood to win. And I don't really necessarily agree. Couple things. CF dot model, always in play. But also shout out to our boy Tyler Gates. On the Invictus show last week, he's like, why not just spam all of the underdogs? It's like, well, that's what the CF dot model essentially is. And it worked. It worked in real time. The underdogs end up
Or
coming through.
4 of 7 or 5.
Yeah,
Four,
and like big plus money. Like one of them was a plus 550, and she goes out there and smacks up Shayna Young senseless. Anyways, point being, it's a real thing. It's not just an ongoing joke that we talk about every week. It's that big women underdogs, not just, it's minus 127. Oh, Angela Hill, it's even money. Maybe it goes to plus 110. I'm talking like when you're betting someone at minus 550, minus 600. It's like, well, what do you know about them? And so here's the thing. When you look at Cavalcanti, she's got 3 fights in the UFC, all of them by decision. The last 2 by split decision. You mean to tell me somebody that's gone to decision all 3 times, so we can presume this one's probably going to go to the scorecards, right? In fact, her last two fights have been split decisions, and she outstruck her last 2 opponents. One of them 91 to 52, still a split. And against Nora Cornole, 54-54, really low level opponent, somewhat close fight. I gave it to Cavalcanti, but split decision. Now you're a minus 550 favorite over who? You've just been in 2 greasy splits against the bottom level opposition in this division. And this is going to be another, maybe close, maybe split against another considered bottom feeder of the division. So why would you bet at minus 550? You won't. You won't. Take the over on this thing because it's going the over. For Julia Avila, let's just make like a small excuse for her. So she's got a win over Nico Montano, former UFC champion, if you can believe that. back in the day on the regional scene. She ran track and field at the University of Notre Dame in Ohio. So she was a good college athlete. Paul, like he mentioned, a little bit older when she comes over. But her UFC debut against Penny Kianzad, right? Muay Thai fighter. She outstrikes her 49-33 and had a clean knockdown. Her fight with Gina Mazany, bum. But she knocks her out in 22 seconds like you probably should. It's that fight with Eubanks. Eubanks is a Lloyd Irvin BJJ black belt and like a decent enough grappler. Is that she gave up three really easy takedowns against Eubanks and she could not get up. And for the record, because I took an absolute bath on that fight, she was a minus 275 favorite over Eubanks. But she showed in that fight she cannot wrestle, she cannot grapple. She got a BJJ brown belt, good athlete, solid striker. She's off of her back. She defensively cannot get back up. So against Stolyarenko actually did take her down as well, but ultimately Avila beats her up a little bit, is able to get a takedown of her own, takes the back, chokes her out. But against Miesha Tate, I hammered Miesha Tate for no other reason than we already seen Avila's flaw. And she was taking that fight off a long layoff. She's fought once in the last 3 years against Tate, but you know she can't wrestle, and you know she's a poor grappler. Cavalcanti, she doesn't have to worry about any of that. Her two fights in the UFC that she's lost is her giving up three takedowns to Eubanks, four takedowns to Tate. Cavalcanti's a straight up striker, has a credible striking background, has a history in striking arts. In her fights in the UFC, 3-0, close decisions where she's just struck the entire time. She'll fight the type of fight that Avila wants to have. And yeah, is that enough for Avila to win? Maybe not. But I could see volume coming from Cavalcanti. She outlands Avila, who's a lower volume striker. Avila maybe lands some more eye-catching shots. Maybe even tries to mix in a takedown of her own. I don't know. But at minus 550, I want no part of Cavalcanti. So if I need like a PRP pick, I've already got some juicy underdogs as it is. But like Calvin Cater, I think he wins. He's not in the same category of Julia Avila. Julia Avila is a flyer. It's the PRP pick for no other
Fair.
reason than she's plus 400 and it's going to just juice this thing up astronomically. Cater, it's like I did the tape research on him. You can never be confident in this game because, then you just don't get your hopes up because something wild ends up happening. But that's a fight where it's like he's world class and he needs to go out there and show that. They're both abysmal and it's all the numbers look off and you're chasing a number because it's a dog or pass type fight and that's it. You can just pass. If you're a smart man, just pass. If you want a little action on every fight, if you bet a PRP, something of that nature, this thing's going to juice up it absolutely a boatload, but grease, absolute grease trap.
Yeah, that sounds like you're thinking like me in that situation, which sometimes works out, sometimes not so much. Anyway, we're
I
just.
think we're on the exact same page. Like I could read you the PRP, but
I'm
Paul's picks would
scared
be
for
the
you.
exact same thing.
I'm scared for you. I mean, this year actually hasn't been all that bad for me, but feels like we're due for a banger card. Hopefully, this is it. We like a lot of underdogs. We're in the apex. We're in a situation where it's like I don't know. I mean, props to Australia last week. There really wasn't any sort of issues with judging whatsoever.
And there was 9 decisions, so they had their
Yeah,
hands full.
everything was pretty bang on, to be perfectly honest. So, props to them. We're back in Vegas, where if you're a believer in fights are fixed, then you probably don't like being in Vegas. But it's where all the there's no distractions. So whatever the fight is how it should be actually. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, we're pretty much
apparently.
on all the same page except for Petroski.
Right, right. Apparently, Elon's Doge team is going to come and investigate these shitty referees and judges. So they got to tighten
Allegedly.
up. Where the payments coming from, man? How the heck could you give this person 2 rounds? How it did. The PRP poll. Let's get at it. Jared Cannonier, underdog number one. Calvin Cater, underdog number two. We're going to go with Edmen Shahbazyan, Ismael Bonfim, Andre Petroski, underdog number three. Jose Delgado, Angela Hill, even money. Jared Gordon, Rafael Estevam, Gabriel Bonfim, Vince Morales, underdog number four. Dante Mays, and then, like, technically, yeah, I guess Julia Avila. Julia, she's American. I don't know why the hell I said Julia. That just sounds stupid now that I think about it. Julia Avila, but again, just you can pass altogether. Or hopefully Paul and I hit you up with a regional show, breaking down the bees, talking about some. I think there's only really like Aries and one other card. Nothing super exciting, but I'll find something on those cards almost certainly that you like more than some random minus 550 women's MMA fight. Just don't do it to yourself.
Yeah.
Just don't do it to yourself. But that's
Link
about it
is
for me, Paul. I know you started off, oh, we're in the Apex. It's not a super exciting card, and
no,
I
I
think maybe
actually
that's the sentiment from people. But yeah, I'm a hardcore. That aside, being a diehard fan aside, I see some violence. I see some angles. I'm just hoping that those reads and those plays end up being right, and we can make this one a profitable one. But those sneaky little fight nights that fly under the card historically have always been our best outings, and I'm just honestly hoping that this is one of them.
brother. I was taping Way of the Warrior Combat, WoW Combat, which takes place somewhere in Spain this weekend, because like one of my books had that. Link is in the description if you want more from us. We're running a Patreon. There's a Discord. People are bouncing ideas off of each other. Plus, we break down all of the, we do a show called Best of the Rest where we break down all of the other regional show cards that you can get action down on. It can be a little tricky for some that don't have too many books to get action in on some of these places. So, yeah, just if you have regional stuff, we're talking about it. We just aren't talking about it here. We're talking about it in the link in the description. Will bring you over to the Patreon, and then once you get over there, pretty straightforward how to get onto the Discord with all of those fine people. But you don't want that. You just want UFC picks from us. We aren't going anywhere. Still brought to you by CoolBet. Promo code Dogger Pass will get you a match up to $200 on your first deposit. So easy lemon squeezy. Let's have a week this week. That is it for us this week. Producer Jared and Cody Saftik. I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.
Oh, oh, oh. Oh.